are still tuned into the Power Station Energy 100 FM with myself, LCB Twinyani, as your hostess. It is Econichat Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. In case you've missed out on our previous talks, you can of course go to economist.com.na, or you can simply go to the YouTube channel, which is Economist NAM. Right, Mr. Daniel Steinman?
Yep.
We are talking a mid-year budget review, and of course, Mr. Daniel Steinman, like always, gives us the background or the history so that we could understand, what we had to do in the past to get where we are today. And that's what we will be talking about right now. Where are we today in relation to our budget, our national budget? Are we doing well? Let me start with that question.
If you find out, let me know. Elsevier? Remember, you asked me what is the importance of the mid-year budget review? Why bother? Why have a mid-year review? And in the first part of our conversation, I said we were confronted by the reality of a budget deficit for the first time in 1996. Now, we carried on for about 7 years, not going in any way, not really having a formalized structure. And then in 2003, we introduced the so-called MTEF, Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, which you can refer to it as a digital tool developed by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, of which we are a member country. And remember, at that time, this is now about 20 years ago. At that time, there was this big debate about our income status. Were we a least developed country, or were we a middle income country, or a low income country? And from the political side, you had all these voices, or must I say noises?
Noises, definitely.
Not voices, noises. That it was not to our advantage to be classified as a middle income country because of income disparities and because of the whole colonial history and you can take your pick. It all depends on which side in the parliament you sit on. But that was the debate. Fortunately, that debate is sort of fizzled out. You no longer hear anybody making a point about our formal classification in terms of our income. The IMF classifies us as a middle income country, and it's been like that for more than 20 years, and we now accept it and we operate as such, which is very important. So in 2003, we introduced the beginnings of the framework that we still use. And this is the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, and what it means is that you budget for 3 rolling years. It's also called a rolling budget because it carries on for the first years, the actual year in which you are now, meaning it's the real figures, and then the second year is projections, and the third year is even further projections. So in the beginning, we have to be very honest, it took us the better part of 10 years to really get on top of making this system work, the MTEF system. In the beginning, it was quite amusing. You could clearly see that the people at the Statistics Agency for the second and the third year, they simply sucked their thumbs and put down whatever was an intelligent guess, because we didn't have the structures in place, nor did we have the high frequency data that we collect nowadays to actually make meaningful projections. We basically, it was intelligent guessing, nothing more. But fortunately, we stuck to it, and as the system developed, we also developed the capacity, the human capacity and the systemic capacity to be able to run a budget at that level. So let's come back to that question, why the mid-year review? The mid-year review is a very important point in the fiscal year. Now remember, I've explained in the past that calendar quarters and fiscal quarters and financial quarters are not the same thing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about fiscal quarters here. So for the budget, of which the fiscal year starts on the 1st of April, we are now only at the end of the second quarter. Not the second calendar quarter, the fiscal quarter, the government's quarters, or the government's fiscal year. So in a sense, the mid-year budget review looks back over the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and it makes an assessment of the following 6 months. Because in terms of government money, we are now in the middle of the budget period. So that is the importance of it. Not to be caught unawares again, like in 1996 or like in the beginning of the introduction of the MTEF system. It was very difficult in the beginning, and any Minister of Finance at that time will tell you that although we made a big spiel of data-based policies, we simply didn't have the data.
Yeah.
And you don't just go and put down a couple of clever or intelligent people in front of a computer and tell them, listen here, capture this data for us, put it in the Excel spreadsheet. We want to that develop. It's what part of that whole process to develop capacity.
Yeah.
And also part of the process to do a meaningful mid-year review is the sort of depth that you have to develop in your human structures, in other words, the people who have to do the job, but also in your computer-based, your digital systems, the applications, the apps that you use to do this.
Yeah.
And this is not little squeaky apps that you can download from the
Play
Microsoft Store. I'm talking serious programs. Just to give you an idea, the what we call wall-to-wall enterprise management. Usually it's typically a SAP system, but it can also be an Oracle system. There are various systems. The tender for a new system, and this is about 12 or 13 years ago. At that time, I give you a guess. What did it cost?
I don't even want to try that.
More than 200 million. Now, can you imagine what the power of a computer program must be for that program to cost $200 million 13 years ago? It was massive. Then you ask yourself, is this really a good investment? And then in the first 2 or 3 years, you don't see the returns immediately. This is part of the whole capacity building process. You need the people who are educated in these specific fields, in statistics, but also in many other fields, and you need the systems. And that system, as I've just indicated to you, is very expensive. But eventually it all comes together.
Yeah.
If you're not prepared to make that investment, painful as it may be, you stay stuck at that point.
Definitely.
So you never know what's coming your way, what can hit you now in terms of the budget results. And today we are at the point where we can actually, within a few $100,000, now maybe $1, we can make very accurate estimates of where we will be from 6 months in future.
And speaking of, we will be touching on that once we come back after the short break.